Hey everybody, welcome back to Two Girls Without Cancer. I'm your host Becky here with Miss Ashley.
Hello.
And we have a really awesome guest today. She is an expert in her field. And as soon as I started chatting with her, I knew like we needed to get her as a guest on the show because it's something that Ashley and I deal with a lot lately. So we're talking panic attacks here. Did you ever experience panic attacks before you got sick?
Yeah. I was on point. I was pretty happy.
Yeah, right. Well,
even the stuff I had gone through, I never
experienced panic. Yeah, me,
No.
I was like so nonchalant, like
right.
Whatever, like life happens, it's fine. Right. Now I'm like sitting on my couch watching murder shows. Maybe that's part of the issue. And then I'm like, oh my god, I'm dying.
I used to love watching like all the doctor shows. I can't watch them anymore. As soon as it comes on or something with cancer, I'm like, I'm out.
Yeah,
I turn it off. I can't do it.
I can see that. Yeah. Well, I guess I should bring our guest in. She is also an author. We will talk about her book in a little bit, but her name is Silvia Araya, and she is here all the way from Tennessee. Welcome.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for being here. Like I was saying to Ashley and the viewers, as soon as we started chatting, I was like, we need this person on our show. We need to chat with her because I think a lot of people, well, us for sure, like we can't speak for everybody else, but like us for sure are dealing with that mental health, anxiety aspect where we never were before. And I do think a lot of other people are struggling with that.
Oh, yeah.
I think people end up finding our show because they are struggling.
I think a lot of people started struggling too from the COVID pandemic and all that stuff, being isolated.
Oh yeah,
for sure.
And like doom and gloom, thinking they're gonna die all the time with like forced like propaganda. Yeah,
100%. When that happened, I remember people telling me like, "Wow, so are you seeing more people now? Have you seen an increase in like clients?" And I said, unfortunately, yes. So it's a good thing, and it's also a sad thing to see how many people are struggling with anxiety, panic, trauma.
Yeah. I think like part of, for me anyway, again, can't speak for anybody, but part of what the issue was that I finally had time to think, like not so much during COVID, I was like full blown conspiracy, like didn't follow any of the rules. Like everything was like rebellion for me. But like, when I got sick, like, finally I had time to just stop and process what was happening. I wasn't, going to work every day, running late, trying to drag my kids, to daycare, to school or whatever, making like, it was just,
you were in the moment.
Yeah. Like I didn't have time to ever think about where I was. And so like when I got sick, I mean, obviously you have that doom and gloom over your head, but I was also thinking about like, am I even happy? Like, am I feeling like I'm a good mom? Do I feel like I'm a good wife? Do I even like being married? And I'd only been married for 6 months at that time, but like, I hadn't had a chance to think about anything. So I think like, as that went on, my mind started to race more and more and more. And then when I was told that I no longer had cancer, that's when the scary thoughts started to come in. The panic started to come in because before I was just trying to stay alive. Now it's like, oh my gosh, I could come back all the time.
Always.
Yeah. Yeah. That is so, and I'm, as I said to the two of you earlier, I'm not an expert in cancer by any means, but I do have a lot of experience with people close to me, including my sister-in-law, who had stage 4 breast cancer, metastatic, one of the most aggressive ones. And I was just talking with her last weekend, and she said exactly what you said. She's like, now that I'm not in remission because it's stage 4, but let's say remission. And she says now it's that constant fear of, is it going to come back? Every time I have to go and get a scan, I am freaking out. Yeah, because it's like,
they don't get easier.
Shows up, right? And I have to go through all of that again. And that makes so much sense. But if I can go back a little bit to what you said, Becky, about, our lives were like very, breezy or normal or whatever you want to call it. And you were not thinking about that. So I had the same experience. I had a normal life, in, normal quotes. I was in college. I just came back from a trip in Europe, completely alone. And like I made that 3 months alone in Europe, in different
Oh,
languages, different things. And then I come back to my country and I can't even get on the bus on my own country, my own language. And I'm like, what is happening? Right.
wow.
Um, so it can happen like that so fast. Your life just changes in a minute and you
Mhm.
no longer recognize yourself. But at the same time, what I wanted to touch on is it's a very uncomfortable and hard to go through panic attacks and anxiety. But the positive, I guess, if I can call it that way,
Mhm.
is that it's what you said. It helps you to like connect with yourself, go inside.
Mhm.
Mhm.
And for the first time, for a lot of people, it's to really see, oh, so all of this was there all along, and I just
Mhm.
didn't have the time, or I didn't have the energy, or I just didn't want to
Repression.
deal with that. And so it's all coming out. So in a way, yes, it's all coming out and it's challenging, but at the same time,
Mhm.
it's good that
It's good
all
to
of that
release it.
is
Mhm.
coming out. Exactly.
Mhm.
I actually found that when I started to experience panic attacks and like quote unquote anxiety, it was after I started counseling because
Mhm.
everything comes out,
Mhm.
right? Where I'm we've talked about this on
Yeah.
the show many times before, but like I'm doing counseling for cancer, feel how I'm feeling around cancer, and I'm talking about my dad, my ex-husband, my kids,
Mhm.
my current husband, like, and all of these things were coming out and I was like, this has nothing to do with cancer, and yet it was coming out. And then I was starting to feel a lot of
Mhm.
anxiety around it. So I mean, I feel like I'm over the hump, but I also feel like at any point I could
Mhm.
have a panic attack, let's
Right.
say. And that's stressful, and I'm sure you
Oh
feel
yeah, it happens.
the same
I
way.
cry all the time. I
Yeah,
freak out.
yeah. It's basically panic is like the last drop,
Mhm.
basically.
Mhm.
It's that's what it is. It's when, and I sometimes I tell people like picture a glass of water, right? And it's
Mhm.
Mhm.
filling. You don't really you're not aware of it, but it's
Mhm.
there, right? In the background, just filling. And then one day one drop falls and then the whole thing just
Mhm.
and so that last drop is not the problem, right? It's what made you
Oh,
look.
that's the problem.
Mhm.
Yes, that's right. So the panic and the high anxiety just made you look like, oh, this has been filling up for years, and
Mhm.
I
Right.
didn't notice. So it's exactly what you said. Like the minute you started talking about this, it was just a lid. You opened it, and
Mhm.
it was like, oh wow, all of this was
Mhm.
inside my marriage, my kids, my life, my career, my all the things, all my
Mhm.
traumas from when I was 5 years old. Yeah, it's all
Yeah,
there.
literally. Hey.
Mhm.
Well,
Oh yeah.
it was crazy, like too, the transference from like stuff I was holding on to from
Mhm.
my former marriage that I was now putting onto my current marriage.
Mhm.
And it was like, how is this happening right
Mhm.
now? And then, I'm always like a very logical type person.
Mhm.
I can talk myself down, things like that. Always very positive. And so to
Always.
like experience months and months of this was awful. And like, my best friend is like, who are you? Like, I don't even recognize you anymore. And I'm like, I'm an introvert now. I like to stay home and panic. It's like, that's not who I am.
I actually,
Right.
We're starting to break out of that.
yeah, like I after everything kind of settled down with all the surgeries and stuff, and then for me to get out of the house and be around crowds, I didn't like it. And
Yeah.
I love being out. I was always an extrovert. Worked hard, I did all this stuff. I was around so many people, and then I was scared to get in my car. What if I got in an accident? And it's like
Right.
you have these
Beat
thoughts. It's
cancer
like
just to get in a car accident.
that's what was running through my mind. So I get into an accident, but I just beat cancer, and it's like I had to do whatever I had to do to protect myself. So all I wanted to do was stay home, right?
Right.
Because you get into this scared panic. You just beat something that was so crazy, and now what if you went into the world and something happened, right?
Right.
I think
Yeah.
our minds just they race
Why do they
and they
do
go
this?
places.
Yeah, for sure. It's a heightened sensitivity. And it's your survival
Mhm,
Mhm.
instincts just
mhm,
activate in a way that they were not there before. And
mhm,
just like you said, I remember becoming aware of things that I wasn't.
mhm,
And I was, again, when I had my panic attacks, I was in college. I was in that
Mm.
time of life where you like, for some people, like you're
Um,
partying, you're having fun,
mhm.
you're going out, you're meeting
Yeah.
people, right?
Feeling,
It's,
yeah.
yeah. It's those years, right? And all of a sudden, I was doing all of that. And then I was not coming out of my bedroom, right? So,
Mm.
Mhm.
and people were like, what is happening, right? And then some of my friends continued with that lifestyle. Some stayed with me, which sometimes happens, I think,
Mhm.
with any major shift in our lives. And I include that, something like going through cancer. Then you start to see things differently.
Mhm.
And some people around you might understand that, and some people might
Hmm.
not.
Mostly not.
This is why
Right.
that's why Ashley and I connected,
Yeah.
because like our closest friends are great. They're awesome. They're always
They're
supportive.
Mhm.
But like, do they understand? No, they don't understand.
No.
You
Right.
can't. You really can't
Until
until
it
you
hits
are in that
until it
moment.
actually hits your own body. Like, say you have an aunt who's gone through it or something like that. It's still not the same until you
Right.
fully experience it on your own
Of
and go
course.
through it.
But that being said, like we never wanted anyone
Oh,
else to
we would
experience.
Yeah. Yeah. No,
we would never want that, but that's why we got so close, because we knew what each other was going, or we would have to cancel because we're too sick, but we wouldn't get mad at the other one. It's like, we get it, you know?
Right.
Yeah, oh, you're too tired today. You just are overwhelmed today.
Mhm.
Perfect. Me
Fine.
too.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
just
It's just
faking it to hang out. But like,
Yeah.
and even before we ever actually started hanging out, we're chatting online all the
Mhm.
time. Like she lived close to me, but we just didn't
We
know each
hadn't
other.
we actually hadn't met until
The podcast started.
yeah,
No,
and
till the funeral and then the
funeral,
podcast. Yeah.
and that was in August?
November of
No, was November?
2023.
Yeah.
And then we didn't hang out really a lot in there. And then we're like, do you want to start a podcast? Okay.
Yeah.
And then
Because it's like our outlet to help us heal when
Yeah.
we can express who we are.
Mhm.
I think, like, with the anxiety, by holding it in, that causes panic attacks. So if we can express, you know,
True.
and that's letting
Yeah.
it out, right?
A
That's a
lot
big
of
healing part.
it is exactly a big part of anxiety and panic and trauma, all of it. It's the fact that you're going through something very difficult, and then on top of that, you feel alone.
Mhm.
That is
Mhm.
one of the biggest, if not all of the causes of trauma in our lives. It's
Mhm.
it's this disconnection when you feel helpless, hopeless,
Mhm.
abandoned, all the things. So, not that, again, I want people to go through
Mhm.
difficult
No.
situations, like you said, and I say that all the time. I said, like, I don't wish panic on anyone because
Mhm.
it's horrible, and very uncomfortable.
Mhm.
Having said that, when you take, and it's exactly what you said, Ashley, I think it was you, when you can take something
Mhm.
difficult and you transform it and
Mhm.
you create something positive, something
Mhm.
beautiful, healthy, something that is going to help other people out of
Mhm.
it, that is totally worth it for me.
Mhm.
So,
Yes.
having created a whole career out of panic attacks, and I tell people, I don't
Mhm.
care if people call me, oh, you're the panic attack lady. Yeah, sounds horrible,
Right.
but at the same time, I'm proud. Yeah, I'm like,
Yeah, of
Yeah.
course.
What is it?
because
Turning lemons into lemonade.
right, yeah, because I'm like, because now it's in a different way, and I look at it differently, and I
Mhm.
say, if I had to go through that again, I would. I mean, just to be where I am right now and to be who I am right now. Yes. I mean, of
Mhm.
course, I'm not trying to call it, but all I'm saying is that when you take something and you transform it,
Mhm.
and then you create community like the two of you
Mhm.
are
Mhm.
doing, so that no one else has to go through that
No.
in the same way,
Mhm.
that's magic. That's alchemy for me.
Mhm.
I think a lot of what kind of pushed us even during active sickness
Mhm.
was people messaging saying you're inspiring
You're so
or
strong.
you're so strong or
How
like
do you do it?
I'm watching you and I appreciate what you're and or whatever. And it was like we like we've talked
It's
about
like
this so many
we're so
times.
broken.
Like we're both
Yeah.
we're both such a hot mess, but like you find me inspiring. But it's like
Yeah.
people didn't talk, at least for us, the
Mhm.
situations that we knew, people weren't talking about cancer, not for like young people.
Mhm.
I'm sure there were outlets and stuff out there, but a lot of people did message, even
Mhm.
people like who weren't going through it,
Mhm.
just saying like, I'm very inspired by the things you post and the things that you're saying. And it was like, okay, like if we
Mhm.
could help a person,
Yeah.
even just that little
Just
bit,
one.
then at least, obviously like it wasn't worth it to have
Our
cancer,
purpose
but
is
like at least it gives some positivity to like a pretty dark
Mhm.
situation.
And a
Right.
lot of people would reach out and say, "I don't know, you're so strong. I couldn't be that strong." It's like, we really are all that strong. And when you're faced with that situation, it comes out, you know? But it's not easy.
Mm-hmm.
But
Right. Yeah. I believe 100% in what you're saying. When you're faced in a situation, and I've had moments in my life where I thought, if this happens to me, I'll die. I remember saying,
Mhm,
when thinking younger, oh, if one of my parents dies, I'm not gonna, I can't even
mhm,
think about it.
Right.
Right. And then my best friend died when we both were 27, and it was an accident, so it was surprising. Yeah, it was.
mhm,
She was perfectly healthy, and I remember being at her funeral and thinking, "I'm doing this. I
Mm-hmm.
can't believe I'm actually doing this."
mhm,
It was
Mm-hmm.
hard. It
mhm,
was super hard, and like I still don't know how I did it, right? But
mhm,
but I also remember thinking, I'm doing it. I'm
mhm,
here. I'm going through it. I'm surviving it. So it's exactly what you said. Those are the moments where you realize, oh, I guess I was stronger than I thought.
mhm,
Mm-hmm.
mhm,
I think that we often will put, I don't want to call it a curse or anything, but like almost like a self-fulfilling prophecy. If you're like, I'm never going to get through that. I'm never going to
mhm.
forgive this person. I'm never going to beat cancer. I'm never going to feel like myself again. Well, it's like, yeah, you're right. You're not, because you're not
'Cause you're
even
not,
allowing
yeah,
yourself that.
you're not putting positive
Yeah, and that
words.
was that was always one thing that I was good at, right? Like
You
anytime
always.
you'd come in here like a rain cloud, I'd be like, sunshine,
And I'm
like,
like,
come on, everything's gonna be
"Meh."
great. But like inside, sometimes I didn't feel like everything was gonna be great. And
Mhm.
sometimes I felt like I wasn't very genuine
Yeah,
with my
you're
actual
very good at
feelings.
that.
And so that's where I think the
And
the,
then
the
I got her
dark
to cry.
we don't talk about that.
And then we just started a waterfall, and it was great. I was proud of her.
You were like, oh my God. Yeah. But I think like as I started to
Mhm.
acknowledge my
Yeah.
true feelings about things, or be genuine with
Mhm.
myself, that's when the
It
anxiety
just
started to
started.
come,
Mhm.
because it was so heavy. I'd been carrying like the weight of the world,
Mhm.
for me on my shoulders for so many years. And
Mhm.
like to finally start letting it out was a lot. And I was like,
Mhm.
I don't want to keep doing counseling. Like I was seeing 2 different counselors plus a sexual health counselor. So 3 counselors. And I was like, I don't want to keep doing this. It's hard. It's awful. But I got through it. I got through
Mhm.
the hump. It
Mhm.
was hard work, but it was awesome.
Mhm.
Right, right. That reminds me of, and again, every journey is different, right? For
Mhm.
me, it was panic and anxiety and traumas, and for other people, it's an illness or a death or a divorce or whatever it is that
Yes,
it's
yes,
going
yes,
to
yes. All the
bring.
things.
Check, check, check. Or it's something that is going to allow, again, it's like that to open
Mhm.
the lid, and
Mhm.
come, and all the things are going to come out, and it's super hard, but at the same time it's like, aren't you just grateful that all of that came out, and then you didn't have to wait until you were, because sometimes I tell people, I see people going through this, but when they're in their 60s, 70s, 80s, and they don't have the same resources or energy or time or whatever it is. So in a way, I'm grateful, even though it's really hard, but I'm grateful
Mhm.
to have the opportunity to, yeah, I don't know.
I
There
get
was
that.
something, yeah, there was something, again, yeah, something
Mhm.
that needed to be healed, and to
Mhm.
have the opportunity to heal it.
Mhm.
Yeah, to me, it's almost like a blessing, because
Mhm.
then you see other people that are, or struggling with addictions, because they just want to
Mhm.
keep it in, let's
Mhm.
Mhm.
not have this come out ever, but then the struggle just stretches for
Mhm.
Well, I think there's such shame about not being perfect,
right.
especially if you were someone who
Mhm.
always had like that perfect social media life.
Yeah.
So for people to know that you're struggling is hard. It's hard to be vulnerable as
Mhm.
well, even with your loved ones, but especially with strangers.
Mhm.
So there's a lot of shame. And then when you realize, like, I do not care about what anybody thinks anymore. I mean, there is something very freeing in that. And it was like, I just care
It
about
is
what I
freeing.
am going through
Mhm.
and what I'm feeling and how I can heal.
Mhm.
Because, like, ultimately, after you go through that stuff, you can be better
Mhm.
for the people that you love and
Mhm.
care about.
I had a lot of mom guilt. I think that
Oh,
was the
yeah.
hardest for me, that
Yeah.
my son was only 3. He just turned 3, and I couldn't even go to the park with him. Like, I couldn't do those things that any other parent could do, you know? That was the hardest for me.
Mhm.
Mm.
Yeah.
But I mean, you were a single mom too.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you didn't have
No.
the luxury, let's
I
say,
didn't.
of having a partner there to take your kid and do those
That was
things
hard
with
too.
you. It was you and your
Mhm.
son, and
Yeah.
that's exhausting. No wonder you feel mom guilt.
And, like, it's great because my sisters and my mom, they're such a big help. Like, they're still to this day, they're my everything, you know, and but when you personally can't do it or you can't get out of bed because you're sick, you know, it's hard. And then there's days where my son would just color in bed because he just wanted to be with mom, you know, or he'll make sure he stays with me because he just wants to be by my side. He's so content, like, we don't need to go out to, like, the I don't know, Galaxyland or something. He's just content just being with me. But then
Yeah.
I'm like, he's not doing all the things that I wish I could be doing with him, you know?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. That's I'm just learning so much by listening to the two of you.
Mhm,
And at the same time, I relate with some of the things you say. So it's interesting. It's what you mentioned earlier, Becky, and I imagine that's probably all of your, if not the majority of your listeners, is that there is an identity transformation in crisis that
mhm,
happens when you're going through something like this.
Mhm.
And then putting it together with what you said, Ashley, now it's also a lot of guilt and shame that
mhm,
comes of also that transformation, because I remember saying those in those days, like, I don't want to become a burden.
mhm,
I don't,
Mm.
mhm.
I don't want, because I
Those days
had,
I felt like that.
right. In
Mhm,
my case, like I said, I couldn't even get on a bus. So I depended on a lot of people to just go to the supermarket.
mhm,
And I remember feeling the guilt and the shame, like, this is a person that I've become.
mhm,
And I don't want to show that to the people. I was studying psychology back then, so I had also a lot of shame about that,
mhm,
because I'm like, I'm a mental health professional and I'm going through anxiety and panic attacks, so I must be like the worst psychologist in the world, like,
but you're going through it, so
who
now
is
you
going
can
to
help more
trust me?
people.
Yeah, I remember thinking, like, who's going to trust me? Who's going
Mhm,
to trust me, knowing this? And we talked backstage about another experience, but it's also connected. When I was in an abusive relationship a few years ago, and I wasn't in college anymore. I was
mhm,
already established psychotherapist, and I remember thinking, when people like know about this, they're going to stop trusting me as a professional,
Mm.
because who in their right
mhm.
mind gets into this situation, being a mental health professional,
And
all those things?
people don't understand how hard it is though, you
Yeah,
know? They don't
totally.
understand how what's that word I'm trying to, the power that another person has over you, they
Yes.
don't understand that.
Mhm.
And
No,
they'll say, why didn't you get out?" Because I was also in an abusive, and it's like, "You don't get it. It's not just easy. You can't just leave." You
I was
know?
that people. I was.
Mhm,
I'm
I can
really
see both
sad to
things.
say that
mhm.
I used to say, I don't understand why they can't just take their bags and leave. Like,
It's not
it's
like
so
that.
easy,
It's
right?
too
And when
hard.
you're there, it's a different conversation. But going
Mhm.
back to the identity crisis, um, yeah. So that I remember thinking all these things about myself, judging myself, criticize
Mhm.
myself, then thinking like, then
It's
who am
mhm,
I? Then what am I? Because I'm going through this, and so what does that mean? And like, who is this new person? And but I want to
Mhm.
still be the me from 2 years ago.
Mhm.
But
that's
like,
what we do
so
now.
yeah, it's such an identity crisis in that moment. So it's all together, and that obviously makes it harder,
Mhm,
right? You're experiencing the symptoms in your body. In your case, the actual cancer or the chemo and combined, or I don't know. I was going through, I can't breathe, I'm gonna have a heart attack every
Mhm.
5 minutes. And on top of that is that identity piece of like, what does this mean? Who am I now?
mhm,
And how do I show up in the world now?
mhm.
It's a lot. It's a
It is
lot.
hard. Like, when I talk about the old person I was, like, who I was prior to cancer, I always talk about the old person. And now there's this new person, and they're two different. And I'm working with my therapist right now to blend her together
Awesome.
because it's always two
Mhm.
separate people. It's not, but she's trying to explain to me that you're still that person. It's just a
Right.
different version of you. But in my mind, I'm like, I can't be her, the old Ashley. And it's like, and now I'm just this Ashley,
Well, for someone like you who is incredibly independent,
Very,
you know,
yeah.
boss babe, like
I
entrepreneur,
love to hustle. I love to
hustler. Yeah, that's a great one.
I love to do things. Great.
To all of a sudden,
Yeah.
like, can't get out of bed, need people to take your kid for you, make you
Mhm.
meals, things like that. That's tough.
Yeah.
Same with me. Like, yeah, I was married, but like,
But you're go.
no one ever did anything for me. I had a
No.
boyfriend tell me after we broke
Yeah.
up once that I was just too independent. Like, that's why we're not together anymore. And it's like all of a sudden, I'm like, "Ugh, someone give me something. And I waited until I did chemo to actually like ask people for help. And even then, I was like,
And
no,
then-
I'll just do it. I'll just do it.
And they're like, then what's wrong with you? Like,
Yeah,
you
you're
can't
fine.
do this? I'm sick.
Yeah,
It's a hard transition.
it is. It is a hard transition, but I love when you were saying, yeah, there is that, and it's not easy, but then it's the integration of
Mhm.
I'm
realize,
still not there yet.
right, yeah, that's still you, but or you can still take some of the things from the old you and bring it to your present you, or
Right.
and also at the same time welcome the other things, because going back to what you said, Becky, I was very independent. Like I said, I was traveling, backpacking. I
Mm.
had no problems going here, there. All of a sudden, I have problems with things like elevators that are like pretty basic,
Wow.
right? And then so now being in my vulnerable self with this new self, or this new Sylvia that says to people, yes, I've overcome a lot of that. And when people ask me, do you still get anxiety? Do you still? And I'm like, yeah. But now I feel stronger to say it out
Mhm.
loud, like, hey, you know what? I still get anxiety sometimes. Or, you know what? Sometimes, heights still scare me.
Heights scare me.
And that's fine. Yeah, and that's
Mhm.
okay. And I embrace it not only as a person, but as a therapist. But that has taken me a long time to admit, to go into that vulnerability and say, I'm this new person. I now get very, very scared, or I'm very sensitive. I cry a lot. What you said, I'm shy now, or I'd rather stay home, or
Introvert.
I'm an introvert.
Mhm.
Exactly. Like all those things. And you know what? It's still me. It's still me.
Mhm.
And yeah, and I feel like that opens a lot of doors for all the people that want to
Mhm.
say the same.
Yeah, I'm trying to appreciate this new version of me. Like, I definitely still see glimpses. Like, my sense of humor is still the same. My opinions on things are still the same, but it's like I feel like I don't people please like I used to, or like when I worked in the corporate world. Um, oh, hey, do you want to get together after work? Like, let's go for drinks. Like, now I just do not care. And like, that is relieving because it's like, I have a close group of friends that I really care about. They were there while I was sick and stuff. And it's like these people before that I'd be like, you want to hang out? You want to be my friend? Whatever, trying, like, who cares? I don't care anymore. So that in itself is very relieving. But yeah, there is some identity crisis. As soon as you said that, I was like, yeah, that makes sense for sure, because I don't recognize me with 30, 40 extra pounds. I don't recognize me with no hair. I don't recognize me with missing a boob. Like, it is an identity crisis for sure. I don't recognize me being scared to talk to people because I'm an introvert now. Like,
But we have to really learn how to love ourselves again.
for sure.
I think that's the biggest part.
That you took the words out of my mouth, because I was thinking more like acceptance, but the way you said it, it's way more. It's the journey of learning how to love yourself again,
Mhm.
or for the first time for a lot of people, right?
Mhm.
But really with all of it, with the past you, the present you, the hair how it was, the hair how it is,
Mhm.
the the strong parts, like you said, the dominant, or and also the sensitive ones that now are come out. So it's I guess it's a process, because you have to basically become, your heart needs to grow, let's
Mhm.
say it that way, so that you can actually take in all of that and love it. Does that make sense? It's like,
Oh yeah.
Mhm.
yeah,
Yeah. loving the skin you're in. I mean, that's definitely the season
That's
we're both in.
yeah.
I've heard before, like,
It's hard.
anxiety is the fear of the future, depression is the fear or the sadness of the past. And
Mm-hmm.
like, yeah, the times that I feel really sad or like depressed, it's like when I grieve
Mm-hmm.
my past.
Cool. Yeah.
And then the times I feel anxious, it's like what's happening to
What's
come.
coming.
And so that, that makes sense for me. But like just living in this moment right now, appreciating my body for what it is, it's obviously not what I'm used to or ideal, but it is what I have. And you know what? It friggin' served me the last 2 years that
It's
I'm
kept
alive.
us alive.
So, I have to remember that on the days that I get really down on myself.
Right.
Because my body could have gave up. Like a lot of people's bodies give up. I had stage 3, she had stage 4 cancer. Like our body could have
Easily
flatlined, but it didn't. So, being thankful for those moments are few and far between, but they're there. You have to remember that.
I love that because I want to tie it together with what you're saying about anxiety and the future. Because yes, when we're thinking about what's coming or what if it comes back, right? Or what if I have to go through that specific chemo again? What if I have to get that test? Yeah, whatever, right? So we're thinking about all these future scenarios that might not even happen. Most of the time, some don't even happen. And so what I've learned to do that has helped me a lot, it's in the lines of what you said, Becky, and it's just to be grateful instead of trying to shut down that and say, look, don't think about the future. Just stop it. Just stay here. That doesn't help because it keeps pushing in my case. So what I've learned is to actually thank those thoughts and be like, oh my God, you love me so much, system, brain, whatever you want to think, or me, like you love me so much that you're thinking about all these possible things. Thank you for protecting me. Thank you for trying to protect me in this way that, yes, maybe we can tweak it and change it and not worry so much. And we can look for other ways to protect ourselves, but in a way like appreciating almost. It's like, wow, thinking about the future and being anxious in a way, it means how much my system loves me and wants me
Never looked at it
alive.
like that.
I love
Yeah.
that.
So when people come to me, my clients, and they tell me, I have this high anxiety, the first thing I tell them is like, wow, look how much your body loves you that it's trying to keep you alive. Look how much your
Thanks.
system is on your side that
Got
is
chills.
thinking nonstop 24/7 thoughts to keep you safe. Look how much there is inside of you. We just need to find another way to do it that is not so hurtful, right? Because that
Right.
stress and pain and all those things. But I want to focus more on what it's behind it, which is just it's protection. So in a way, it's
Makes sense.
beautiful. Yeah.
I like that reframe. Like, what a difference. It's literally the same thing. Like, all these thoughts are in your head at once, but one is
One
panic,
word.
doom, fear, death. And one is, no, your body is literally trying to protect you and it loves you. And so I like that a lot.
Just doesn't know how to do it. Yeah, it doesn't know how to do it, but deep down, it just means like, hey, I want to help you. Let's try to stay alive. So that's beautiful.
Amazing.
Sometimes I
I
tell
like
people like it would be maybe a little worrying if you didn't have your alarm, because it's like
Yes.
same with like the smoke alarm. Like if the smoke alarm is like going beep beep, right, and you go, oh my God, what's wrong with this? I'm like, yeah, it sounds like it's very sensitive. Your smoke alarm is very sensitive. The good thing is that it's working. It would be worse if your smoke alarm didn't work. Like that would be worse
Wow.
to me, right? So this
Totally.
is easy. We just need to dial it down a little bit.
Yeah.
But actually, it's a good thing that it's working. So same with anxiety and pain.
Wow, that's a good analogy.
Right.
So we've got a couple minutes left. Why don't you tell our listeners about your book? You're an author, and then we'll close out.
Sure. So I started with a little book about panic attacks. That was 13 years ago. So
Wow.
this year, the new edition is coming out. Hopefully, I said hopefully because I said that since the 10th year anniversary. Anyway, I'm trying to make it very complete, very putting a lot of new stuff in there, and then I have another book about trauma and relationships. So that one is about talking not only about how to go through difficult relationships, abusive relationships, PTSD, and all those things, but also it's about how to align yourself to the relationship that you deserve.
Mhm.
So sometimes we have to first heal all of that trauma
Yep.
and that situation that happened in previous relationships so that we can, align, attract, manifest the partner that we truly deserve. And not
Mhm.
just the partner, anything in life, really, because we all deserve love. And
Girl, you need this book.
yeah,
You need this book.
I'll send it to you. I'll send you a copy. Yeah.
Amazing. And so where can they find your books? On your website?
Yes, also Amazon. So they're there
Okay,
in,
amazing.
ebook, whatever you read, paperback, yeah,
So all
whatever
the places you can get it.
yeah, that's it.
Amazing. Well, we both appreciate
Yes.
you being here. It really hit the nail on the head for a lot of things for us. So you're the perfect guest for our show. And we just are very thankful that you were able to take some time out of your day to be here today.
Yeah, well, I'm glad to be here. So thank you for having me.
Yes. Thanks.
Perfect.
So, okay, amazing. Where
Right?
do we keep
I know.
finding these awesome guests? I feel
It's
very
pretty good.
blessed right now. That was Silvia Araya. Her book is called Is This What I Really Want? How to Go Beyond Trauma into the Relationship You Deserve. Sounds like, we all need that book. Like any woman, any man too, anybody needs that book. If you want to check out anything of hers, again, Amazon or her website, which, hold on, I'm backwards here, down here,
Okay.
SilviaAraya.com. Again, check us out on all of our socials. Two Girls Without Cancer. Oh my gosh, I was with cancer. Two
It's
Girls
gone.
Without Cancer on Instagram and TikTok, although we don't really post a lot on TikTok anymore.
Working on that.
We're working on it. Even Facebook, we don't post a lot there either. But Spotify, Rumble, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, all the places you get podcasts, we are there. Two Girls Without Cancer. Join us next week when we interview a lovely fellow who works with eating disorders. So that should be interesting. I know. Awesome. Well, have a good day, everybody.
See ya.
Bye.